Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in with me on this podcast tonight. It's truly a blessing to see each and every one of you all who are under the sound of my voice join in on this podcast. At this time, I'm going to allow Facebook to indicate to others that I'm on. But those under the sound of my voice, if you could go ahead and share out the podcast at this time, just to indicate and let to others know that I am on tonight, giving words of encouragement. Um, as we journey through this day. So, with that being said, I appreciate each and every one of you all who join in with me on this podcast. I pray that each and every one of you had a blessed day on today. The weather is hot out there, so you can't go out and enjoy the sun, and that's a good thing. Anytime we're able to get out and experience um, the outdoors. Um, as I allow Facebook to draw me in the audience, I just want to first take the time out to thank God for keeping us and keeping His hand over us, with the many things that's going on in the world, the trials and the tribulations. So, I do want to give God thanks for that. On tonight, I'm not gonna be on here very long, but I do wanna give you this word that I've been looking at on tonight um from the Bible. So with that being said, as I allow Facebook to indicate to others, Charlene, thank you so much for joining in with me on tonight. Truly a blessing to see you on here tonight. Thank you so much for joining in. As I allow Facebook to indicate to others that I am on tonight, I'm gonna give it just maybe a minute before I go ahead and jump into this message that I have. I'm also gonna share it out as well. So as you all are coming on in and sharing out the video, just tell me how was your day. Hopefully you able to get out and enjoy some of this good weather. It is nice and hot outside, so hopefully you were able to get out and enjoy the weather on today. Um, thank you. One second. Um, while I'm sharing out the video, I pray that each and every person had a blessed day on today. Um, y'all, I when I started my day off today, what I come to realize is sometimes you're gonna have to be able to overcome and overlook some things that go on in life in order for you to keep going with the purpose and the plan that God has for you. I realize trying to be persistent and consistent with this podcast, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. Latanya, thank you so much for joining in. And you have to stay focused as much as you can in order to keep going. I often look back over this journey as for when me and my husband first started this toward the end of 2016, and to still be up and running up until 2025. I thank God for that. But y'all, I'm telling you, it takes a lot of consistency. It takes a lot of time. For you to put into something that God has given you and that you truly believe in. So I thank each and every one of you all who take the time out, even on Monday at 7 o'clock. As you know, me and my husband, we do it together on Monday at 7 o'clock, and then I do it Tuesday. And I've been trying to get into the TikTok world on Thursday. So I appreciate those who even take the time out to come over there on TikTok with me as well. I pray that everybody had a blessed day. As my husband said, we are trying to build this community over here. And the more you all can share out and tag people in the videos, it is appreciated because it helps us get the video further out. It helps us get more reach. As usual, we always tell you, if you don't watch it on Facebook and want to watch it on YouTube, we also have a YouTube channel that you can go and follow us under Real Talk with Frank and Vanessa. But either way, however you want to watch it is fine with us. Um, I pray that each and every person under the sound of my voice had a good day on today. Y'all, what I come to realize as I was driving home on today, and I was taking time out to reflect on some things and situations and circumstances. Linda Boo, thank you so much for joining in. I am so glad to see you on here. You have been on my mind, so I pray all is well with you on tonight. I had been reflecting over some situations and circumstances that I had been faced with and challenged with. And God had begun to say, sometimes you're going to have to overlook what you see. And we have faith over fear. What I mean by that is we know that when God has called you to do something, you are going to be tested, and you're going to be tested um several times. And on today, I got up with the intentions that I knew I had to get up and get ready for work. I also had a eye doctor appointment, so I know I had to go to my eye doctor, and then once I left the appointment, I was going to go to work. And y'all, I promise you, I found myself being challenged. And let me tell you something. God said sometimes the way to alleviate a challenge, or the way to walk out of a challenge victorious, God says you have to start telling people, I don't want to talk about this. And as God began to show me, he says, because that's what the devil wants to do. He wants to make you start a conversation with him. And once he can get you to have a conversation with him, then he can take it as further as he wants to take it. But God is saying on today, he says, some conversations you're going to have to tell people, I don't want to talk about this. And then God says, when you tell them, I don't want to talk about this, whatever it may be, God says, walk away from it. And I had to thank God on today that He told me that I'm going to have to learn to stop talking about certain things with certain people. Because he says every time you have that conversation, it leads to this. And then when you have this conversation, it leads to another that. So I just want to encourage y'all on tonight. The word of the day is, I don't want to talk about this. So y'all, I'm going to go ahead and get into this message. What I'm going to talk about on tonight is I'm going to talk about the prodigal son. As I began to look at this book about the prodigal son, y'all, as we know the story, the prodigal son, he was the son. The father had two sons, and this one particular son, he wanted his inheritance. And y'all, as I begin to look at this, it made a lot of sense to me. And Taz, thank you so much for joining in, and congratulations, Taz. Thank you for joining in. Congratulations on. I see you just recently got married, so congratulations. Um, as I begin to look at this prodigal son, it all started to make sense to me. And God is saying on tonight, before I even dive into this, God says some of the things that we may be faced with and encounter with, whether it's a kid, whether it's your son, or whether it's your daughter, God is saying they will come to themselves. And as I begin to look at this story, it all made sense as to what God was saying to me about they will come to themselves. So let me go ahead and get into this message on tonight. So it says there was a man who had two sons. So this man, he had two sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. So basically, this younger son, he goes, I'm glad that you're happy, Tess. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The younger son, he goes to the father and he asks the father for his inheritance. So, as we know, you don't get an inheritance until someone passes away. Y'all, I'm gonna make it make sense to y'all because as I read this story and as I went through this story, I never, we always hear them talk about the prodigal son, the son that squandered all his money, the son that got it was in the pig pens with the pigs. But as I looked at this story, it's so much in there. So the younger son, he asks his father for his inheritance. So he divided his property between them. So what happens is the father, he gives the son what he asked for. Now, y'all, I'm gonna stop right there. So the younger son, he wants something that he's not ready for at this time. Not only is he not ready for an inheritance, because you got to think about it, that's pretty bold for you to go to your parents and say, listen, give me my inheritance right now. So basically, we know that when you inherit something, you inherit it because of a person has passed away. So it's something that they leave behind for you. Secondly, he was pretty bold to go to his father and tell his father, basically, in so many words, act like you dead and give me what belongs to me. So I looked at that. And we know that the father, he gave this son what he wanted. And as I began to look at this, God was saying, you can't give you can't give your kids stuff before before their time. Because I looked at this. Even though the man gave this boy what he wanted, this boy went out and he squandered up everything the father had gave him. Now, y'all, this is what's interesting to me is everybody talks about the prodigal son, but what happens when the parent gives you something that you really can't handle at that time? And as I began to look at this, I says, it's so much in there. I says, because the father gives him what he wants, but it's not due to him at this time. So sometimes giving them everything they want don't do anything, y'all. And I'm just being real, but make a mess of a situation. You can't give people everything they ask for. Y'all get that? You can't give them everything they ask for. So I look at this father and I question, I says, why did the father give the son the inheritance and the father is still living? And sometimes, y'all, we look at it as we want to give them everything that they ask for and we want to give them the best because we want them to do the best in life. But what this passage showed me that as a parent, some things you gonna have to withhold from your child. It's not to hurt them, but it's to help them. Because what this boy did was this boy went out on and went off on the deep end. So it says that once the father gave him his inheritance, he says not long after that, the younger son got all he had. Now this boy takes all he had and he leaves and goes to another country. So after the father gives him what he asked for, this boy get all his stuff and he goes to another country. And as he goes to this other country, and there he squandered his wealth in wild living. So what happens is he starts to have a good time, as the kids say. And as I began to look at this, God had begun to show me something. Sometimes when you not able to say no, and they go out into the world and have a good time with what you have given them, God says they will come to themselves. See, what I've learned is even in this passage, what I learned is experience is a good teacher. Even though he wasn't able, he messed up everything that his father had given him. But God is saying sometimes you got to let people learn the hard way. God is saying they will come to themselves. So, y'all, as I begin to look at this passage and I begin to look at this prodigal son, and as I was looking at the prodigal son, I began to think about, us as parents, how we love our kids so, and how we want to give them the best and we want to make sure they're straight. But you know what God was saying? God says there's a reason why you can't give them everything that they ask for, because sometimes giving a child everything they ask for, it doesn't do anything but make a mess out of them. But God showed me that they will come to themselves. What am I talking about? As I begin to just look at situations and circumstances where we're living in this world now, where children don't respect their parents at all. They don't even acknowledge their parent as being a parent. And that's what made me go back to this story as the prodigal son. And as I was looking at this story, I says, the father gave him something that he didn't deserve. You know how they say you don't reward a child for bad behavior. So what I did was I looked at it and I says, I understand rewarding them for bad behavior only causes for more bad behavior. Miss Gwen, thank you so much for joining in. Oh, so as I begin to look at this story about the prodigal son, I began to look at sometimes in life we don't realize that giving them everything they want may not be the best thing for them at that time. Now, I'm not saying we can't give them the things that their heart desires, but I'm saying there's a time for everything, because guess what? This boy, he went out and he squandered everything that he had. Matter of fact, he took everything. He left his father's house and went to another country, which was fine. But the part that got me is he started living this wild life. He started partying, and then he went and hired himself. So what he did was, this boy came to the point where he was living so bad, he became a servant. And when he became a servant, he was feeding the pigs. But it got to a point in life. That's why I say they will come to themselves. God is saying experience is going to be a great teacher for some of us, because even if we look back over our life, they couldn't tell us everything to do in life, but some of the things that they told us we did value. But one thing I come to realize is that experience will teach you a lesson. And as I began to look at this prodigal son, and he went and he started to taking care of pigs. Now, you leave your father's house where your father has it all. And when you leave your father's house, thank you, Monique, for joining in. When you leave your father's house where your father has it all, see, be careful when you want to go somewhere that your mind is not ready to take you to. And this boy, he leaves his father's house, and when he leaves his father's house, Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining in. He ends up in a pig pen. So I looked at this situation. I says, you mean to tell me, thank you, Monica, you're right. You can give a child just what they ask for. And when you give the child just what they ask for, they take it and they go and squander everything that they asked for, that you gave them. And when you give it to them, they go and live like pigs. I looked at that. So we're talking about the prodigal son. The father, sometimes I'm going to show y'all something. First of all, the father gave this boy something that he did not deserve. And when he gave him his inheritance, now I told y'all, an inheritance, you don't get that until somebody passes away. So when I looked at this story, I says, this kid was mighty bold to go to tell his father, basically, give me what belongs to me. And when I looked at it, I said, but the father was not dead at the time. And I said, it really caught me. It really gripped my attention that you would basically, as a kid, tell your father to act like he's dead so that you can get what your father worked for in order to do what you want to do with it. Be careful when they start asking for things and you still living. So as I began to look at this story, as y'all, as I said, I never looked at this story. As I always hear the story of the prodigal son. We just know that he's the younger brother. We know that he got his inheritance. We know that he squandered the money. We know that he lived a wild life. We know that he got in the pig pen and was about to eat the pig slop. But as I began to look at this, at the whole dynamic, sometimes, and I'm just being real because I can speak for myself, you can't give them everything that they want. Because if you give a child everything that they want, I'm telling you, it'll make a mess of them. We looking at this story. So as he goes out and the father gives him everything, but this is the thing. When the father gave it to him, the father still trusted God. See, we're going to have to trust God even when they get what they want and take everything they got and leave and go to another place and party and squander everything that we have given them. We still going to have to trust God. God says sometimes you're going to have to take your hands off of certain situations and circumstances. God says the reason you're going to have to let experience be a great teacher, because God says if you let them learn something and not try to give them everything. See, sometimes, y'all, I'm finding even myself where sometimes you want to give them everything that they want. But God is saying you don't reward a person for bad behavior. First of all, and I'm just looking at this, and I never really looked at this, and I understand that the father, he trusted God and he waited for his son. But I'm looking at the fact that you allow a child to come to you and tell you basically, you dead in my eyesight. Give me everything that you have worked for. Let me have what belongs to me and let me go and leave your house. So I looked at the father and I says, first of all, as a parent, I can't reward bad behavior. But God was showing me that in this passage, even though the prodigal son father had given him what he asked for, God says, but if you do like the prodigal son, he said, the prodigal son's father, and give them what they want. God says sometimes you're going to have to take your hand all the way off of the situation. God is saying sometimes they don't realize that what they asked for, they really wasn't ready for. But God said, like I said, experience is the best teacher. So this boy, the prodigal son, he goes out and he party. What happens when you take everything that your parents have given you and you go out and you squander everything that you got? This is what I'm saying. See, sometimes God is saying they will come to their senses. Why do I say that? Because the Bible shows us that even when the father, see, there's a such thing as train up a child in the way they should go. Even though they shall, if they depart, they'll come back. Let me show you something. Once this boy left his father's house, see, sometimes I'm telling you the honest to God truth, you're going to have to learn to let them go. Because I'm looking at a world, and I'm just really being honest with you, of a lot of kids that feel like they privileged. They don't feel like they have to work or earn anything. They feel like they deserve everything. And then when they get everything, they want more, more, more. God says, take your hand off the situation and trust me. God says, if I told you to train up a child in the way they should go, I said, though they will depart, they will come back to themselves. Because it shows us right now in the prodigal son story, this boy had to live at the lowest of the lowest of his life. Let me show you something. God says you can't appreciate a good thing until it's gone. You know, we hear them say, oh, all the time, you don't appreciate something until it's gone. You don't appreciate a good thing until it's not there no more. You don't appreciate what you had until you've messed everything up. God says, listen, I'll get their attention better than you can. God says, because guess what? They will come back to themselves. So as I begin to look at this story, now this boy, he's living, he's partying, and now he goes to another country and he sells himself as a slave over in this other country. Let me tell you something. Sometimes you got to hit rock bottom before you understand that the place that you was in, you had just what you needed. The place that you come from was the place that God intended you to be. But because you decided that father's house wasn't good enough, daddy gave you what you asked for. Now he lets you learn for yourself. So as I begin to look at this story on tonight, y'all, it amazes me how we got a generation, and I'm not talking about all young people, but we got a generation. It just amazes me the things that they say to their parents and how they treat their parents, and basically how they have no appreciation and they feel like they entitled to anything, and it's nothing you can say to make them to make them see a situation the way you see it. God is saying on tonight, he says, take your hand off of it. But when you take your hand off of it, you trust me, because guess what this father did? This father kept looking for that boy. And you may ask why he kept looking for that boy. And I don't know, and the Bible don't say it. It's only me saying this, because maybe he felt like if I wouldn't have gave him the inheritance that I gave him, maybe I wouldn't be so worried. You can't give people more than what they deserve before a time that they deserve it. So as I'm looking at this, it says the boy, he goes and he sells himself over to another country. He says now he's in the pod with the pigs, and he's almost at the point where he about to eat with the pigs. Let me tell you something. Sometimes in life, you're going to have to allow people to take a journey. And you're going to have to stand on the other side and say, Lord, I trust you, keep them. But God is saying, I have to show them that where they was better than where they going. Y'all check this out. Where they was is better than where they're going. Because you got your inheritance, but you really don't understand what to do with it. But now you find yourself in another country where you living like a pig. You so low till you left your father's house, where your father had servants who actually took care of you and your older brother. But you left and sold yourself to another country where now you living like a pig. You know, God was showing me on tonight. He says, Vanessa, he says, some situations and circumstances, you're going to have to take your hands off of it. He says you can't keep making excuses for the way they decide to live. And as I begin to look at this, as I begin to deal with this and I begin to twirl with this, I begin to say, it's not, sometimes it ain't all on the child. As a parent, when you give them something, my granddaddy used to always tell me, he says, listen, you can't give a child everything they want. And I didn't understand it. And he says, you'll make a total mess out of them. And as I look back over my life and I think back over the things that my grandfather used to tell me, I realized my grandfather had a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge. And I realized the things that he told me is coming to pass. But I realized on today, I thank God that God had to show me some things that God says, listen, if you take your hands off of it, God says, cast your cares on me because I care for you. God says, if you take your hands off of something and just keep praying. See, sometimes we want to pray, but we want to do. We want to pray, but we don't want to let go. We want to pray, but we want to take care of the situation. God says, what I want you to do is, He says, when you pray, you believe that you have the things that you asked for. God says, but when you pray and believe that you have the things that you asked for, He says, what I want you to do, He says, I want you to have an expectation. That father had an expectation for that child because he kept looking for him. But one thing I noticed is when that child came back to that father, he was humbled. Because it says when the child came back, he told the father, he says, listen, father, I have sinned before God. See, that's where it comes in with raise up a child in the way they should go. That boy came back and told him, first of all, God, first of all, Father, forgive me. I have sinned before God and I have sinned before you. See, sometimes God has to get them to the place where it looks like the pig pen is about to be a permanent residence. Not that God is going to leave them in a situation that's going to harm them. God says, I have to show them that where you came from is where you about is better than you where you about to go. And I looked and I says, I want to encourage a lot of people on tonight. Whatever you going through, you got to let people know where you came from, it was better than where you about to go. But you got to let them know that experience is going to be a good teacher. Because, see, when you was in your daddy's house, you was able to eat like you wanted to. But when you got in the world ain't doing you like daddy did you. The world ain't going to do you like mama did you. Guess what? You appreciate where you been. You appreciate where you was. And so, as I looked at this story on tonight, God is saying that a lot of people have to come to themselves. And this don't all mean a child. A lot of us have wandered away, meaning we have wandered away from God. Where at one point in time we were so close to God that you couldn't detach us from God. At one point in time, we studied the word and meditated on the word day and night. That people thought that when people seen us, right, Jeffrey, you had to pray with intentions. That's correct. At one point in time, we were so close to God that you couldn't separate us from God. Leonard Holmes, thank you so much for joining in. And as I begin to look at this story, God is saying, when you've gotten to the lowest point of your life, God says, when you find yourself in foreign places and you've realized that you've drifted so far away from me, God says, I'm looking for you, because that's what this man did for his son. He kept looking for this boy. God says, I'm looking for a lot of people who have drifted away from me. See, let me tell you something. Some of the time we want to fix everything for everybody. But God says some things they going to have to fix for themselves. God says when you get so far out of when you get so far, just know I'm still in reach. And as I begin to, look at this story on tonight, y'all, I'm going to tell y'all, as I was telling y'all, God is saying some things you're going to have to let it go. He says, because if you don't let it go, you're going to find yourself wandering off. And when you find yourself wandering off, you might just lose yourself at the same time. God is saying, I'm waiting for a lot of people to come back to me. Not only did the prodigal son drift off, a lot of people have drifted off away from God. And as I begin to just look and think about this, even I'll just talk about myself. I begin to tell God that I trust you when I can't trace you. I trust you even when I find myself in places that I know I shouldn't have been in. I trust you when I find myself at the lowest points in my life. God, I still trust you when I can't trace you. Because like Jeffrey said, you got to pray and you got to pray with intentions. You know, I when I came home, I was tired. And I actually was drained because the closer you get to what God is telling you to do, the more challenges you're going to find yourself having in this lifetime. And God began to show me, He says, take your hand completely off the situation. He says, they're going to have to come to their senses because it said this boy did. He came to his senses, but y'all, the good part about him coming to his senses is this: he had to come back and repent and tell his father, listen, father, I'm sorry about what I did. First of all, I was disobedient to God. And then I was disobedient to you. And guess what? God says, I still will rejoice over that one. See, y'all, we got to learn to trust God like we've never trusted God before. And I just appreciate and I thank you all, each and every one of you all on tonight, because I'm gonna tell y'all something. It's easy to get discouraged when you facing trials and tribulations and challenges in your life, and you're trying to do everything that God has asked you to do, and it seems like you getting pulled this way and you getting pulled that way, and you fighting coming in and you fighting coming out. But God had begun to tell me on tonight, He says, take your hand off of this stuff. He says, and when you take your hand off of it, you keep on praying with expectation. See, one thing you got to realize is when you pray, you got to expect that something is about to change in your life. One thing I realize is that when you talk to God, you got to talk to God and expect that there's going to be a change come, because God says, guess what? I hasten to perform at my word. God says, listen, that's why I tell you to meditate on my word day and night. God says, I want you to know my word when you going through times of trouble. I want you to know my word when things seems like everything is hell and high water is breaking out. So I just encourage each and every, yep, we have to trust God like we breathe. And yep, that's correct, Jeffrey. And I just want to thank each and every one of you all who got on this podcast with me tonight. um as my husband say, we always be transparent, and I told him when I came in, I says, I might not do the podcast. And one thing I like that he said, he says, don't let the devil get the victory. And that resonated with me. Don't let the devil get the victory. God is saying the devil goes to and from seeing who he can devour. He says, don't let him get the victory. I don't care what you going through on tonight. Don't let the devil get the victory, because one thing he desires to see, he desires to see you down instead of up. But God says you are the head and not the tail. He desires to see you losing battles, but God is saying no weapon that formed against you shall prosper. So, y'all, I just thank and appreciate each and every one of you all who came on this podcast with me on tonight. Um, I just want you all to be encouraged on tonight. I want you all to keep trusting God no matter what you find yourself going through. Tasha, thank you so much for joining in. Or no matter where you find yourself, whatever point you find yourself in life, I want you to keep trusting God. I understand that, you can't let the devil dictate your plays. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about how they play football. And I see how those men, they cover their mouths when they talk. I guess somebody's telling them something and they telling somebody else something. I don't know. But I noticed they cover their mouths because guess what? They don't let their opponents dictate the plays that they do. They already have a plan in place. God is saying, don't let the devil dictate your plays in this lifetime. God says, if I told you I got a plan for you, and that's a plan to prosper, He says, stop letting the devil dictate the way you play, make a move in life. So I just want to encourage each and every one of you all on tonight. I truly thank each and every one of you. Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining in with us and jumping over there with us on YouTube tonight. Linda Boo, thank you so much for joining in. Tasha as well. Tasha and Linda Boo, I missed y'all on the Monday Night Live. I noticed y'all hadn't been on there, but I'm glad to see y'all on here tonight, and I'm glad that everything, I pray everything is all good with you all. Miss Gwen, I thank you so much for joining in with us on tonight. Miss Gwen said, I trust in God. I thank you so much for joining in with us on tonight. Y'all, I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna keep doing what God called me to do, because I realize I heard this preacher preaching. He says, if the devil don't bother you, that means he already got you. And as I heard that, that kind of caught my attention, because he says if he don't bother you, that means he already got you. So I just, that just encouraged me to keep going, to let me know that yes, I'm gonna have days of ups and downs, but that don't stop God's plan. See, God is saying, He says, I'm not worried about Satan going to and fro. He says, but I know the plan that I think towards you. He says, and what I want you to do is keep operating the way I told you to operate. Miss you too, Tasha. So on tonight, I thank each and every one of you all. Y'all, I'm gonna try to Thursday, I'm gonna try to do TikTok. I think my husband said they gave us what 180 more days where I can actually get out there on TikTok. Um so I'm gonna try to push that TikTok a little bit more, just to get out there, because they send things all the time. Yeah, I'm glad that you back, Linda Boo. They send things all the time telling me to go live, but y'all, it's kind of hard. I'm not gonna tell no story. Working a job full time, 5 days a week, then I do this. So it's only so much before I get wore out that I can do. But I'm gonna try to keep pushing that as much as possible. I thank my husband that he sets up this stuff for me so that I can just come home and I can just jump in on this live and just give you all what God has given me. But with that being said, I promise you all I wasn't going to keep you long. I thank the people that's on here with me tonight. Y'all, if y'all can, Thursday, jump in with me on TikTok. At 7 o'clock, I'll be on TikTok. At 7 on Thursday. So if y'all can, we gonna try to migrate these platforms. We going from Facebook. We got Jeffrey over there on YouTube holding it down. Now we over there on TikTok, TikTok, which is a blessing, y'all. Me and my husband was talking about TikTok, and we had discussed TikTok a while back. And as we begin to look, I'm gonna tell you how good God is. If you stay faithful and if you trust God, God will move on your behalf in ways that you won't even realize. We had discussed about getting out there on TikTok, but TikTok has all these different criterias and stuff. And one day, this thing kept coming down and saying you can go live on TikTok. And I didn't pay attention to it because, I heard people say you got to have so much of this and so much of that, and you got to have so much of this and so much of that. So I really wasn't paying attention to it, because I'm like, okay, maybe it's just like maybe they're just sending it, because with all the criterias that I heard that you need, I'm like, there's no way we can go live. So one particular day I got on TikTok and I see the live button. So I'm telling my husband, I'm like, I think we really can go live on TikTok. And he like, no, they said you need this and they said you need that. And as when we looked and seen that we could go live on TikTok, I said, God will open doors for you. It may not seem to other people like a major door, But God will open a door for you and you won't even realize how that door got open, because if you go back and look at all these things that you need to just go live on TikTok, we don't have none of it. And so when I was able to actually get out there on TikTok, I said, thank God. See, let me tell you something. God says appreciate what you didn't see coming. That's called faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen. I didn't see that I had all the criterias that TikTok required, but God says, listen, I will open a door that no man can close, and I will close a door that no man can open. So, y'all, I thank God. And that's another reason why I'm going to keep on this journey that God has me on, because God has been showing me some things that it just didn't make sense. But God says, I'm a God where I says, I know the thoughts that I think towards you, thoughts of good and not of evil. But God says also, I have a plan. I have a plan for your life. Though you may not see everything and all the details in the plan, God says, I want you to just keep trusting me in this plan and in this walk of life. So I just wanted to tell you all that. I appreciate each and every one of you all who come in over there with me on that TikTok. I'm gonna keep on pushing it until they tell me I can't push it no more. But I thank y'all. Y'all, Tweety gonna come tonight. She wanna come real bad tonight. So I told her I would let her come on. So I'm gonna let her come on and say hi. Hopefully Tweety don't get too crazy. Cause this the new and improved Tweety y'all getting now. So y'all, here goes Tweety. She done got big. Say hey to the people.
Hey, hey, I was just telling y'all, comment down happy birthday to Tweety because my birthday's in 24 more days.
She said her birthday is in 24 days, but Tweety Tweety has a birthday, y'all, every month. Tweety really has a birthday every single month. So she said that Tweety birthday is September 1st, but she said that this is her summer birthday that's coming up. So in 24 days, y'all, Tweety said her summer birthday is coming up. So she said she was just trying to tell y'all that she's about to have a birthday coming. Stop on your nails. Jeffrey said hi. What else you got to say? You don't know Miss Gwen said hi.
Hey,
That's Tamika mom.
Tamika?
Yeah, that's Tamika mama.
Oh,
Okay. Latanya said hey.
hey, Tanya.
Talk right now. You not no baby.
I'm scared.
You scared, but you begged to come on here. You finished?
Did you like my video? At Five Below, if you haven't checked yet, go on Facebook
And YouTube.
and YouTube.
So Tweety has her own channel. So she said, did y'all like her video on Facebook and YouTube? She said, what, if they haven't checked yet, tell them to check you out?
Yeah,
Tell them.
I told them.
Okay.
An exhibition, an exhibition are coming up. It might be on Thursday. So we going hiking for the other video, and make sure you hit that like button and that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that bell and make sure you hit that bell button.
Okay. So she said her next video, her and her granddad, they going hiking on Thursday. So make sure you hit that bell. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like her video. Make sure you follow her. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's all Tweety got to say. That's all you got to say?
Are we going to New Stars tomorrow? I like our New Stars, the noodles, because they good.
Okay. She said she going to New Star tomorrow. And she like they noodles because they good. That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm at school for the summer.
And I want you guys to enjoy the rest of your summer.
And again, if you have kids, tell them I said tell them have a good summer and have a good day.
Okay. All right. All right. Y'all give Sweetie a hand. She said if you have kids, tell them to have a good summer and enjoy the rest of their day. So y'all, with that being said, this is my little helper. She is very helpful to me. She likes to help grandma out. She also likes to mess up. Nah, I'm just playing. Tell Tamara, say how you doing. That's Latanya's daughter.
How you doing?
That's Latanya's daughter.
It's
Latanya, that's her daughter.
Dad.
That's her daughter. Yeah. All righty. Y'all, thank y'all so much. Tamara, thank you so much for joining in. Join in with us on some more. There go Lynn. Tamara, if you could join in with us on Monday and try to hit us up on that TikTok on Thursday, I would appreciate it. But I appreciate you joining in with us on tonight. Thank you. Lynn said, "Hey, Miss to Miss Sweetie, Lynn, Auntie Lynn. Yeah, tell her hi."
And make sure you get on every live video because a new merch is coming up in a few days.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
We finna make merch, but we gonna figure out which one we gonna make.
Okay, okay. Tweety says she about to make her some merchandise soon as she figure out what she about to make, okay? That's it?
Yeah.
All right.
And we gonna have a couple shout outs.
Stay in the camera.
And she gonna do a couple of shout outs next time.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell them until next time.
Until next time, whoever likes the video, get a shout out and subscribe, get a shout out. And we trying to get to 10,000 subscribers.
Right. Tweety said we trying to get those 10K subscribers. All right, say.
See you later.
See you later. Enjoy your day.
She say you so cute.
Do your little heart.
Say thank you.
Have a great day and have a great day tomorrow.
Right. All right, y'all. With that being said, we gonna end the live. Tweety just had to come and show her face. I know y'all been missing her. She been gone for like what? A couple of months.
Yeah, I've been gone for 2 months and 3 months, and now I came back. Whoever likes this video, I'm going to subscribe to this video, give us 10K. Our first subscriber that's give us 10K will get us mystery pies.
Oh, okay, a mystery prize. Okay, you giving more and more. All right. Okay, y'all. With
And we might do another video with Braylon in it, just if he comes over.
okay. All right.
Say I love you guys.
I love you guys. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and like and comment down below that who
You need to subscribe.
I said that. You need to subscribe. Comment down below if you're subscribed.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank y'all.
We'll never say see you Thursday.
So see you Thursday. Enjoy the rest of y'all night.
Enjoy yesterday night and make sure you pray at night.
Okay. All right.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of Real Talk with Frank and Vanessa. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of our incredible community. Frank and Vanessa truly appreciate each and every one of you who has been supporting them on this journey. Your engagement, feedback, and love mean the world to them. Before they go, they want to give a special shout out to their amazing supporters. Your generosity keeps the conversations flowing and the episodes coming. If you enjoy what you hear and want to contribute to the continued success of Real Talk, consider making a donation. Every contribution, big or small, goes a long way in helping them bring you more thought-provoking content. You can show your support by sending your donations to their Cash App at $VANLUC. That's VANLUC. And for those using Zelle, you can contribute to loveandtruth034@gmail.com. Your support allows them to invest in better equipment, bring on exciting guests, and continue to deliver the real and unfiltered conversations you love. They're grateful for each contribution